All in Sports Network. We love sports.
It is Wednesday, October 1st, here on your Daily Fix for all things Texas Longhorns. I'm Tanner Carlson. That is Jake Jimerson. And this is All In Horns, presented to you by Rogue Sports Network. And Jake, it's time for our weekly AP poll rant. Now, we typically give a little bit of scuff to the AP voters, but man, it almost seems as though every week it just gets worse. And again, they're playing from behind. They play a week from behind, and so everybody complains about what they did a following week. They try to correct it this week. This week, they've got a whole new information of games, and yet still they're wrong because they're going based off of the opinions of people last week and not what is actually happening in front of them, and they're not actually watching the games and ranking them according to what just happened in week 5. These are more so the week 4 rankings, and so we'll go ahead and give a little rant on it and our initial thoughts, a little SEC talk. We'll talk kind of the standings and where we think the SEC is. We mentioned it briefly in a couple of games that we were talking about in yesterday's episode about the SEC just being wide open. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we'll just kind of, obviously talk a little Texas, Florida as we lead up into that game. And the more and more closer we get to that game, we will give more and more information on Texas, Florida, and kind of breaking down the opening conference week game at the Swamp. So, Jake, AP poll was released. Let's take a look at it. Florida State is dropped all the way to 18. They dropped the furthest of any team. They go 10 spots down after losing to Virginia. They also rank Virginia. So then they pole vault Virginia saying, hey, you're a top 25 team, but Florida State, you're going to drop the most for losing to a now ranked team. That makes a lot of sense. LSU drops 9 spots. I actually don't mind that because I just don't think LSU is all that great. Georgia dropping down to 12 is insane. They dropped 7 spots after losing to an Alabama team who jumped 7 spots. So they're saying, oh, you lost to a top 10 team on the road or at home, but now we're going to drop you 7 spots because Alabama is now a top 10 team and you were a top 5 team. But yeah, we still think in a head-to-head matchup, Georgia, Texas would be better than you. Indiana would be better than you. Penn State would be better than you. Yeah, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then Penn State only dropping 4 spots after losing at home to Oregon. Jake, make it make sense to me.
And there's a whole other bunch of mess with this. I'm done giving the AP credit saying they're a week behind. They just don't know what they're doing. And what they do is they react to the games based off their bad rankings. And
Correct.
they make no sense. Why is Vanderbilt only at 16?
Vanderbilt's a top 10 team.
Why is Missouri only at 19? Georgia Tech at 17, they should probably still be a little higher. They're still 5-0 and have a and I just don't understand. I mean, they have a road win at Colorado. They have a and then they beat Clemson for whatever that's worth at this point. But Notre Dame is at 21. While 2-2, I realize they just won big at Arkansas. I don't care. They've done nothing to deserve to be ranked. And you have Mississippi State at basically 28 behind, not getting as many votes as South Florida, which maybe I could understand, or Utah. But yet you have Arizona State with the same record as Mississippi State ranked, who Mississippi State beat head to head. And then you can't rank Mississippi State after this week because you didn't have them ranked last week, even though they covered and damn near won that game against Tennessee. They
should be ranked. They should be ranked in the top 25. They're a top 25 team. But again, AP pollers, drugs.
What has Michigan done to be ranked over Mississippi State? Beat Nebraska? I guess congrats. Everyone does that. It's 2025. This isn't a new thing, beating Nebraska. Well,
Jake, you've got undefeated Missouri. You've got undefeated Georgia Tech, which, again, I'll give Georgia Tech, them being at number 17. I think it's pretty fair considering how they're winning games and how close they're winning games. But, again, they are still winning games. But you got Missouri undefeated. You got Vanderbilt undefeated. And, again, I think Vanderbilt and Missouri should be much closer to the top 10 range. And again, I think Texas should be dropped out of the top 10. I don't think Texas is a top 10 team.
What has Texas done to deserve being top 10 now? Obviously, they're going to have the schedule out in front of them allows them to earn the right to become a top 10, top 5, top 3 team. If they win out, they'll be top 4 in the country without a doubt. But they haven't done it. And they haven't looked all that impressive this year so far. So what have they done to be top 10 over? What have they done to be ranked over Missouri?
I wouldn't have Penn State in the top 10. I think that's insane to have Penn State and Texas both in the top 10 is wild. Ole Miss jumping up 9 spots after beating an LSU team who again hasn't looked great. But
Ole Miss was underranked though to go into it.
They were number 12. I don't think that they jumped. I don't think that they did anything that was like uber impressive the first 4 weeks of the season.
I think beating Tulane the way they did is a really good win. 45-10 against Tulane, dominated them. Tulane's a good team this year.
I'll give you that. Yeah.
And then really dominated that LSU game. LSU was very lucky that score wasn't much uglier than it was.
Ole Miss is also 3-0 in SEC play. Texas has yet to play an SEC game, and Ole Miss is sitting atop the standings at 3-0 in the SEC.
And guess if Ole Miss can win one of their next 2 games, they'll be in the SEC title game because they're not going to lose the rest of the season after these next 2 unless they get upset. They have at Georgia, at Oklahoma. Then they have home against South Carolina. I would heavily favor Ole Miss. Citadel, Florida at home.
We don't know the
Mississippi
status.
State. That would be the other big one.
Yeah, at the Egg Bowl, and we also don't know the status of Mateer. By that point in time, Mateer may still be out with his.
Well, apparently, Mateer is I guess OU circles are talking. Mateer very likely might play in the Red River game.
Smoke and mirrors. That's gamesmanship. I'm not taking.
I hope he plays.
I do too. I do. I want him to play. I hope he does play. I'm just saying a lot of it's going to come down to gamesmanship. I've Texas and OU. I don't take anything of any report seriously whenever those two are releasing information going into that game. Not one thing. Not after the fake playbook situation. Ever since that story came out with Mike Leach, I refuse to believe that any reports coming out of Texas or OU going into that week are true. But yeah, Jake, no, I think some of these high risers, fast risers, and some of these lower teams just dropping way too far. I still think Florida State's a really good team. I don't think I would put them at 18. I think that's crazy. Ole Miss, Jake, if I had a top 10, I'd have Ohio State, and this is in no particular order, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. This is just 10 teams. I'd have Ohio State, Oregon, Miami, Ole Miss, I guess Oklahoma. I honestly don't even know if I'd have Texas A&M as a top 10 team. They don't look like a top 10 team.
I'd have Indiana ahead of them.
I'd have Indiana, Alabama. I'd have Georgia still as a top 10 team because they are a top 10 team. I'd have Vanderbilt, Florida State, and probably Missouri. That's 10 teams right there.
Yeah, I'd be somewhere around that same
Again,
top 10.
No particular order. That's just me off the top of my dome. That's just looking at the standings right now and looking at the most top 10 impressive teams that I've seen this season. And honestly, Jake, Tennessee might be up there. I think Tennessee's woefully underranked.
Yeah, 15 is, I mean, they didn't move for going on the road and beating a good Mississippi State team that should have been a top 25 win, but it isn't. So the AP voters react by not moving them at all.
Right.
Because they didn't have Mississippi State ranked.
If you want to put Tennessee as a top 10 team, you're not going to get a single argument from me. I'll say, yeah, you're probably valid.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not top 10, but they should be top 13, top 12 at least. And instead, they're sitting at 15. I don't know why they're behind LSU. I mean, you got to have them behind Georgia. Georgia beat them at Tennessee, fair and square.
Yep.
I don't understand why they're behind it. I don't know. I mean, I think LSU should be lower than they are. What if they? I mean, I guess they had Lagway throw away the game to them at home. I mean, Florida's their most impressive win. That is a much more impressive win than Clemson.
Yeah,
Clemson's not good this year.
No, but I would say beating Mississippi State on the road is more impressive than beating Florida on the road.
Well, and it was Florida at home.
Florida at home
on the road.
Yeah. So I think Tennessee's resume is better than LSU's. So why is I would say that I would argue that Tennessee should have a higher ranking than LSU.
Yeah, I think there's a chance if LSU's offense doesn't figure it out, I think there's a chance LSU ends unranked.
They could, yeah, they could.
What
I
what have
wouldn't be
they
surprised.
shown this year that would make you think otherwise?
And again,
I
that
mean, if you
Florida,
want to
that
get
Florida
overly
game, that Florida game is based on AP Pollers preseason rankings, essentially.
yeah, and that game was so weird. LSU didn't look like the much better team in that game. They got outgained in that game.
With
I mean,
5 interceptions thrown from the quarterback on the other end.
yeah, I mean, Florida was better on third downs. They had more than double the first downs of LSU. They had 23 first downs to LSU's 10. 5 turnovers, I mean, Florida had the ball for almost 40 minutes in that game.
Yeah.
Florida kind of dominated that game to a point, but LSU just picked off Lagway, and that matters. That happens. But I don't know why you would be overly impressed by that win for LSU. And that's my thing, is just there's no reasoning behind the resumes of who's ranked, because you're clearly saying head to head doesn't matter because Arizona State is ranked over Mississippi State. You're not making sense with several undefeated teams from big conferences.
Right.
Vandy, Georgia Tech, Missouri, all
and have
undefeated.
good wins.
Missouri is 1 rank ahead of Michigan. Missouri would beat Michigan by 20 plus.
Yeah. No, and it just, again, it shows me that they're looking at logos, and they're not only looking at logos, they're not watching these teams play. They're not watching Missouri play. They're not watching Vanderbilt play. They're not watching some of these teams actually play. They're just looking at logos and saying, yeah, they should be there based on where we had them earlier before the season started. So, Jake, let's go ahead and take a quick timeout, and let's hear from our incredible sponsors at Underdog, and then we will give you a rundown of how our entries looked over the weekend. Football is back, and Underdog is the best place to make picks and win money all season long. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like touchdowns, receiving yards, interceptions, and more. Get your picks right, and you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. You can play with as little as $1. Download the app today and sign up with promo code HORNS to score $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5. That's promo code HORNS. Millions of fans have already won billions making picks on Underdog. Will you be next? Underdog, make picks, win money. I made 5 picks in the college football landscape over the weekend, and I ended up 3-2. I did make a big entry that I was promoting here on this show, and if you're interested in the Notre Dame Arkansas entry that I made, I got 2 right, 1 wrong, so unfortunately that does not provide a win for me, but Jeremiah Love, lower than 103.5. He finished with 57 yards, higher than 61.5 rushing yards for Jadarian Price. He finished with 86. And then the Taylon Green, I needed like 21 more yards of total yardage, and I would have hit that one. But I had Florida State covering a 7.5 point spread. That did not hit for me. And then my other 3 wins, big winners over the weekend, I had Auburn, 6.5 points cover, and then I had Mississippi State covering 7.5 points, and then a money line outright win for the Oregon Ducks. So I thought it was a good weekend, solid weekend. You always like to be winning more than you lose. I'll take it.
Yeah, and we don't need to talk about my entries from this weekend. Didn't do well on the underdog front. Did well on the picking front. Did not do well on the yardages front at all this weekend in college football. And so, yeah, no need to spend a lot of time discussing mine. It's fine. I'll battle through the adversity. I'll rebound. And this week, I'm going to be a winner.
Must be 18 and up. 19 and up in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 and up, and in Colorado for some games. 21 and up in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia. And must be present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That's 467-369.
All right. Thank you, Underdog, for providing our incredible entries and picks throughout the college football season. All right, Jake, let's talk a little SEC football, where the standings are. We mentioned it a little bit earlier. Um, Ole Miss sitting atop the SEC currently as we go into week 6, and they are 3-0 in conference play. They're number 4 in the country right now, 5-0 overall. They've got a good, point differential. They've got a couple solid wins under their belt, a ranked win over LSU at home the following, last week. And then Missouri sitting at number 2, Vanderbilt number 3, Oklahoma A&M all 1-0 in conference play. And so there's a little bunched up group of teams right there sitting at 1-0 very early on in the conference standings. You've also got Alabama, who came away with a win at Georgia, probably the most impressive win of the SEC schedule thus far in the season. And then Georgia, LSU, Tennessee, all 1-1. South Carolina, 1-2. They're the only other team who has played 3 games, along with Ole Miss to start off the conference season. And you got South Carolina. They have a funky schedule because at the end of the year they always play Clemson in the final week of the season, so they kind of have to reserve that non-conference game for the end of the year. Texas, only team who has not played a conference game yet. And then you've got your 0 for teams. Mississippi State 0 for 1, Arkansas losing earlier this year, Florida 0-1, Auburn 0-2, Kentucky 0-2. And I do think for real that Auburn and Kentucky are probably, in Arkansas. I'll throw Arkansas as a bottom feeder as well. Mississippi State, I don't think is going to stay at is going to stay at the bottom of the SEC standings for much longer. I think, Jake, this is a really wide open year. Obviously there are concerns with Oklahoma, the quarterback position. They could drop a game within the next few weeks, possibly, depending on how long he's out. Obviously they had a bye week they played Kent State, and then they have a bye week, and then they play Texas. Alabama, I think, is going to be back in terms of competing for an SEC title. Ole Miss is, I think, right now your favorite. They're playing the best. Missouri also up there. I don't know if Vanderbilt is a threat to win the SEC, but they are a threat to beat anybody any given week. Tennessee, I think, is a really good football team still. Georgia, obviously, still very good football team. We don't really know about Texas. They're kind of the biggest question mark, in my opinion. I think Mississippi State is going to win 3, 4, maybe 5 conference games, possibly. And then you still have Florida Gators, who are probably still going to be on the up climb in terms of trying to figure things out, at least on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. You mentioned, we don't know much about Texas. We really don't. We know very little about this Texas team. They're by far the most unknown team in the SEC, probably the most unknown team in the country, because it's just been weird. They opened their season at Ohio State. It's a game 1. Things are always a little funky in game 1. That game was definitely kind of odd, just with both coaches being very conservative on the offensive end, kind of leaning on their defenses. And we're now going into week 6, week 5, something like that. And
week 6,
we know nothing about this Texas team, very little. We start to figure that out this week. I will know a lot more about Texas after Florida, and so
if this week's episodes feel as though like we're kind of stretching for content, it's because we just don't really know much about Texas. I think we have a vague idea about what we know about Florida from what we've seen because they just have played in bigger games. Now, my gut feeling is that the offense is going to started figuring it out a little bit. Arch Manning might be out of his yips. But we don't know because it was Sam Houston State and it's not on the road. He'll go to the Swamp in a hostile environment against a much better defense, probably the second best defense, not probably, the second best defense that they've played all season long, obviously, right behind Ohio State. And will determine a lot to see, how he plays in this game for us to really gain and have a gauge as to where this team is offensively and where this team can go in terms of, are they going to have to win games strictly on defensive side of the ball? Are they going to be able to have a little bit more of a competent offense and have a more balanced attack? And we don't know the running back position, Jake. We don't know the health of Wisner. We don't know the health of Baxter and how well these guys are going to be playing going into conference play. There's just a lot of question marks, especially coming from the offensive side of the ball that we just don't have answers to. We might have guesstimates. We can probably assume a couple of things, but again, we don't know.
No, but the good news is in 2 weeks, we'll know whether this team is a playoff competitor or not. Whether they can compete for the playoffs. I think we'll know that in 2 weeks. That doesn't mean we'll know whether or not they're going to make the playoffs in 2 weeks. They could go 2-0 and still not make the playoffs. But because Texas' schedule, for all the talk preseason about Texas' schedule, they have one of the tougher schedules left in the SEC. They have Oklahoma, so they have top 5 Oklahoma, a neutral site. They have at Florida. They have at Kentucky. They have at a very good Mississippi State team that should be ranked. They have home against Vanderbilt, who's getting game day this week in Alabama.
They're number
they have
16 in the country.
at Georgia, home against Arkansas. That's probably the Arkansas and Kentucky games are the weak games on Texas's schedule. And then they have A&M. Meanwhile, you had A&M fans talking all this smack about Texas's schedule, and they have Mississippi State at home, Florida at home, at Arkansas, at LSU, at Missouri, which is one of their tougher games, home South Carolina, home against Samford, and then at Texas.
Jake, who are your favorite teams in the SEC currently right now? In terms of favorite, in terms of you just enjoy watching them, and then favorite also in terms of a threat to win the conference.
I'm just going to say threat to win a conference because I don't enjoy watching anyone that's not Texas for the most part. To win the conference, Ole Miss, Missouri, Alabama, and I would throw A&M in there because of their schedule.
I think to win the conference, Jake, I've got Ole Miss, I've got Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, and I think those are my favorites currently right now.
And the only reason I'm not putting Texas in
is because we don't know.
Because we don't know.
We don't know. Now,
Texas is an incomplete as of right now. I'm not saying they aren't. I don't
have a grade on them. I don't have a single grade on them. I don't know what to rank them, how to feel about them. But yeah, in 2 weeks, ask me, and then I very well may put them in contention to win this conference. So,
we'll be able to give our full opinion on them in just a couple weeks.
It's even going to be hard to break down this Texas-Florida game to know. I mean,
for me, it's pretty simple. I don't think Florida is a horrible team. For me, this Texas team's fate, one thing I do know is it's going to be determined on how much the offense can improve. If the offense plays really good against Florida, I'm going to be feeling really good about their chances the rest of the season. And there is a worry for me that Lagway just has a game. I mean, he's certainly capable of just having a game. Yep. I don't think he's a horrible football player. And they've had, the bye week to prepare. And they have good running backs. They have what should be a good offensive line. They have talent on the offensive end, just like Texas has talent on the offensive end, to be fair. But yeah, for me, it's going to be, how can this Texas offense do against this Florida defense? Can they do enough to win the game, A? And then B, can they look improved compared to the Ohio State game? Because I think Ohio State is a better defense than Florida, but I don't think they're just miles and miles apart just defensively. Because I do think Florida has a easily a top 25 defense in the country, if not top 20. If not top 15.
There's a reason why I was terrified of this Florida game before the season started. Now, obviously, we have a little bit of a sample size to go based off of in terms of how this Florida team looks, feels, has performed thus far into the season. But before the season started, this roster had me terrified going into the Swamp and playing this game. And that roster is still there. That defense is still there. That line of scrimmage is still there. All it takes is for them to just turn it on for a game against a team that they're going to be trying to prove themselves to in Texas. And so, yeah, Jake, I this game still concerns me. Now, I don't think Florida is a threat long term in terms of winning the conference by any means, but they could definitely play spoiler to a handful of teams, and Texas could be one of those teams that they play spoiler to.
Yeah, I mean, if Florida's offense was good this year, they'd be undefeated. It's that simple. I mean, they lost that South Florida game 18-16. Their defense certainly was not at fault for that. They lost LSU 20-10 with Lagway throwing 5 picks and 1 a pick 6. That's incredible that their defense kept them in that game as much as they did when you consider the positions they were put in. They lost to Miami 26-7, but that game was 13-7 going into the fourth quarter with Florida getting all the momentum going into it. And despite the fact that Florida was 0 of 13 on third downs against Miami. And yet still Florida's defense, despite being on the field the entire game, only gave up 344 total yards while Miami had the ball for 36 and a half minutes.
Yeah.
Their defense is good. And Carson Beck, that is by far his worst game this season. He was 17-30, 160 yards and a pick. And they didn't run the ball overly well against
It's going to be a tall
either.
task for the Texas offense and Arch Manning and Steve Sarkisian to get something going offensively. They've got to execute early on. I think Sark has one of the best scripted first 2 drives of maybe any coach, first 16 plays of maybe any coach in the country. It's a matter of if the players execute those 16 plays to their fullest capabilities. And if Texas gets off to a good start that way, with a great script and great execution of that script to start this game, I feel very confident in Texas moving forward. But if you get some penalties that push you back, if you turn the ball over in the first couple of drives, if you stall and get a 3 and out, and just have drop passes or something along the lines of Arch just, dirting it 10 yards in front of DeAndre Moore's feet, again, it sets your team back for success to start this game off quickly, which you're going to have to do to have success in terms of having a relatively, lack of a better word, comfortable game to play.
Yeah, because when the players don't execute, it cuts the script short too. When you get a penalty and then you're behind the chains, you're behind what your calls are kind of set up for. You got to change what you're calling. When your quarterback javelins the ball into the dirt to a wide open wide receiver, first snap of the play or first snap of the game against Ohio State, it probably changes your opening script a little.
Yeah.
And so, it really is up to, in my opinion, to play. I don't think play calling's been the issue this year.
No.
And if you think it is, you can argue with a wall as far as I'm concerned, because the plays have been there. And whether you can argue about whether or not they should have done more in the portal and been more aware of some of the issues that there are, that's a separate argument. But when it comes to the play calling, I've not had an issue with that this year, even in the red zone. When you can't run the ball in the red zone, it's tough. Guess what? Breaking news.
Yep.
But I would say the toughest 2 defenses left on the schedule for Texas are the next 2 games.
Yeah. Kentucky always has a good
Georgia's defense is still scary, but they have looked beatable at times. Granted, they found it in the second half against Alabama. In Tennessee, the defense was not good.
No.
But they found it against Alabama in that second half, and I'm always going to be afraid of a Kirby Smart defense. But I'd say Florida and OU, as of right now, based off what's played on the field, have better defenses than Georgia.
Yeah. All right, Jake, let's go ahead and wrap up this episode, and we will see you all tomorrow. And then on Friday, we'll do, obviously, our typical Week 6 prediction episode, and we'll kind of give a much more maybe in-depth conversation and in-depth scouting report on Texas and Florida for tomorrow's episode. So stay tuned. Like, share, and subscribe. Get alerts. Spread the word. We appreciate the support up to this point. Big week for the Texas Longhorns, big week in college football. Really, from here on out, every week is going to feel like it's the next biggest game on your schedule at this point in the year. So for Jake Jimerson, I'm Tanner Carlson. As always, ladies and gentlemen, hook 'em.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.